Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. I'm starting with one of the another interesting group of series of lecture that is regarding diabetes mellitus, mainly the drug used in type 2 diabetes mellitus. I found it to be interesting, so I would like to share with you because good number of things we do not go into detail. So I will try to make it as simple as possible, but something may be very useful to you in your everyday practice, and this will be very useful to all interns. So today we are going to discuss regarding a metformin, a molecule which is most widely used in type 2 diabetes mellitus, and in all guidelines it is mentioned that metformin is a first line of treatment for type 2 diabetes mellitus. So whether we should say yes or no to metformin in type 2 diabetes mellitus, you can decide yourself after going through this particular lecture, because in some of the cases it may be very useful, because in some condition metformin will be contraindicated, and in majority of the condition metformin is the first drug of choice. So we'll try to make it as simple as possible. So whether you say yes or no to metformin, we'll be discussing, because it is mainly for type 2 diabetes mellitus. So type 2 diabetes mellitus are usually obese and they are insulin resistant. They've got polyphagia, weight is more, so they've got obesity. So those are those particular group. This is in general, any diabetic person usually very frequently will present to you with a tiredness, increased frequency, delayed healing, either weight loss or weight gain, polyphagia, repeated genitourinary infections, tingling numbness, sexual problem, polydipsia, blurry vision, etc. There are many more symptoms also. Here you can see easy fatigue, asymptomatic group is very big group, polyuria, then you can have excessive thirst, that is polydipsia, weight loss may be there, weight gain may be there, polyphagia, excessive hunger, polyuria, all those symptoms are quite common. And we know very well there is a little genetic predisposition and environmental factors like obesity, pregnancy, steroid excess, etc. You will end up with insulin secretion being decreased, and you will have insulin resistance, and that will finally end up with type 2 diabetes mellitus, in which you will have a beta cell exhaustion. Almost 90% of the people with type 2 diabetes mellitus are overweight or obese. So usually we come across severe insulin resistance. And these are all the different complications which you see very frequently in type 2 diabetes mellitus, right from hyperlipidemia, kidney disorders, we call diabetic nephropathy, peripheral neuropathy, eye problem, diabetic retinopathy, including even glaucoma, cataracts, etc. They are quite common with diabetes mellitus, and along with hyperlipidemia, stroke, ischemic heart disease, hypertension, all those are quite common. And you can come across what we call as a peripheral arterial disease, very common to diabetic, and we come across diabetic foot. Even oral complications are quite common, and you can have a bladder problem, erectile dysfunctions, secondary to autonomic nervous system involvement, and even person can present to you with a depression. Lot of different types of complications. In all guidelines, if you see, the first drug of choice will be very frequently metformin. So metformin is a first drug of choice almost very frequently. But now in a recent guidelines which is published in 2020. In that, to minimize the hypoglycemia, DPP-4 inhibitors, GLP-1 receptor antagonist, and SGLT2 receptor blockers, they are the first drug of choice. There is a lot of trend changes. So you can use as a monotherapy this particular group of drugs. They are now considered as a game changers. But still, metformin remains the center part. So metformin is nearly, we call as a cornerstone in treatment of type 2 diabetes mellitus. So we should understand in which conditions metformin is contraindicated, or what is the disadvantage of metformin. We should understand, and accordingly we should select metformin, yes or no. So I am going through that particular part. You can see here, even in our Indian guidelines, metformin is the center part, and then depending upon all the different factors, that is right from age, BMI, that is obesity, renal complications, then duration, more than 5 years, which is a drug of choice, still metformin remains in the center. Then education, financial, metformin is the cheapest one. Glycemic status, even with a person who has got a postprandial being elevated, metformin remains the first drug of choice still. And to decrease hypoglycemia also, metformin is a drug which usually do not produce hypoglycemia. So metformin still remains common. You can see here the metformin is the first drug of choice all throughout. Also in dual therapy, metformin remains very common. But now the trend is changing. We should follow that particular criteria, and we should pay attention when to use, when not to use. So after a lifestyle modification, metformin is the first drug of choice. But do keep it in mind regarding yes or no to metformin. We know that the commonest condition which results into hyperglycemia is because of decreased incretin effect. We call omnious octet or defronzo octet. So hyperglycemia can be because of all these different conditions. Decreased incretin effect, increased lipolysis, increased glucose reabsorption, decreased glucose uptake. Central causes like neurotransmitter dysfunction, increased high glucose production by liver, increased glucagon secretion, and decreased insulin secretions at the level of pancreas, at the level of beta cells and alpha cells. All these factors are responsible for hyperglycemia, and it will end up with type 2 diabetes mellitus. Ideally, we need a drug which should act on all the level. Now we know that very well. Metformin is acting at the level of muscles and fat to increase glucose uptake by these two tissue, by reducing the insulin resistance, and it acts at the level of liver to decrease the glucose output. So it is not acting at the level of pancreas by acting at the insulin secretions. Hence it is said that it is insulin independent. It does not have any effect on kidney as far as glucose reabsorption is concerned. It has got little effect on incretin effect. We'll be going through that particular part. So major effect is at the level of liver, fat cells and muscles. And we know very well in insulin resistance there are a lot of things which are being happening, including type 2 diabetes mellitus, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, hypercoagulable stage, endothelial dysfunctions, even glucotoxicity, etc. So we want to reduce all these things to reduce the complication. We call it the macrovascular as well as the microvascular complications. And for reduction of that, we need a good drug which controls majority of the pathophysiology and decreases the toxicity. So we know that type 2 diabetes mellitus is insulin resistance. Indirectly we call metabolic syndrome or cardiometabolic syndrome, and that is a major cause of type 2 diabetes mellitus. So in a diabetes mellitus, we know that there is an insulin resistance at the level of liver, at the level of muscle, and at the level of fat. And metformin reduces the insulin resistance and it moves the glucose into fat cells for utilization and into muscles for utilization, and it decreases the glucose output from liver. At the same time, it is also acting at the level of what we call as a GI tract. We'll be going through that particular part. So it also acts at the level of the GI tract, decreases the appetite, decreases the glucose uptake by GI tract, and that is also one of the small factor, but that is one of the factor which will also helps in reducing the glucose level in blood. It is also said that metformin acts and it stimulates the incretin mechanism, by which there is also some of the things which is happening through incretin and helping to reduce the glucose level. So biguanides is a class group. Metformin is the most common material which is being utilized. It is acting through by activating AMP kinase, and this action is on the liver by decreasing the glucose production by liver. It decreases the intestinal glucose absorption and it increases the sensitivity of insulin over fat cells and muscles. And because of this action, it has got effect on fasting level as well as postprandial level. There are some advantage. There is no weight gain because it is acting at the level of intestine by decreasing the appetite. So usually we said it is weight neutral. So by and large there is no weight gain. As it is not acting through insulin release, by and large there is no hypoglycemia. And because of all these effects, there is a reduction in cardiovascular event and mortality, which is seen by UKPDS study. It also reduces LDL level and TG level. Hence, there is a little decrease in the level of lipids, and it is beneficial for cardiovascular system. Metformin can be combined with insulin and any other oral hypoglycemic agents. There are some disadvantages we'll be discussing in detail as we go through. There are common GI side effects because of which good number of times we have to cut down the dose. And the commonest side effects is abdominal pain, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Sometimes even a person gets cramping pain. Rare complications like lactic acidosis, which is not quite common. You can develop B12 deficiency secondary due to prolonged use of metformin, and it is contraindicated in a person who is having a CKD or end stage kidney disorders, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. The dose has to be reduced, and in a stage 4 and 5 it is contraindicated. And even if a person who has got a congestive heart failure or hypertension or shock, it is contraindicated because it can end up with lactic acid acidosis. And any person who has got an end stage liver disease, it is contraindicated. We'll be going through. Yes, there is one biggest advantage as far as the cost factor is concerned. It is very cheap. Hence, it is one of the drug for a poor group of people or poor socioeconomic, and having many advantages. So it has become the drug of choice, and it is the first line of treatment in case of type 2 diabetes mellitus unless it is contraindicated. It is available in we call immediate release form like 500 milligram, 850 milligram or 1000 milligram. Oral solutions are also available, 500, 750, 1000 milligram. Extended release preparation, we call XL or XR, which are 500, 750. Some are having even 850 release form and even 1000 milligram. Maximum dose you can go up to 850 milligram, 3 tablets in a day. So that is less than 2600 milligram. But as you go higher the dose, GI side effects are more common, and even the toxicity of metformin becomes higher and higher. Very rarely you come across the toxicity because of either 500 milligram extended release form or 500 milligram of metformin OD. Very rare. But some of the people may get even with the 500 milligram of immediate release form or extended release form. To reduce GI toxicity, to reduce the number of pills, by and large extended release form is being utilized. Minimum dose is 500 milligram. Less than 500 milligram is usually not so effective. There is another thing which is very important. By and large, the metformin should be given after meal. It should be preferred after dinner. So best way is to give after dinner and after meal. It is an oral hypoglycemic agent, belongs to biguanide groups, and it is only drug available in this class. Other are outdated, and we have already told you it is acting via enzyme called AMP dependent protein kinase enzyme, and which is acting at the level of liver and which is decreasing the glucose output or decreasing the glucose production, and by decreasing the gluconeogenesis. Apart from this action, we have already told you that it increases the glucose uptake by fat cells and muscles. It increases the insulin sensitivity. It increases the fatty acid oxidation, and it decreases the intestinal absorption. And metformin do not cause the release of insulin from pancreas. Hence, the chances of hypoglycemia is very less. Now, there are also additional action, that is at the level of, mainly it is acting at the liver, muscle and fat. Classical action. At the level of GI tract, it decreases the absorption of glucose. At the same time, there is a decrease in appetite, which also decreases the intake of food, and thus it will also help in reducing the glucose level. At the level of pancreas, it will increase the alpha cell function, it will decrease the insulin release, and it will increase the glucagon uptake. All this will be helping in direct way for control of diabetes mellitus. But direct action on pancreas is rare. It does not directly act and release insulin. So this is, in one slide everything is given. It reduces the activation of insulin. It is anorexic action, fibrinolytic action, hypolipemic effects, improves anaerobic glycolysis. It enhances the utilization of glucose by muscle. It improves the lipolysis. It reduces the lipogenesis. It inhibits the gluconeogenesis in liver. It inhibits the absorption of glucose and fat acids in intestine, and it potentiates the effect of insulin. All these things will help in reducing the glucose level. So there are two types of action of metformin. We call AMPK mediated and AMPK independent. Insulin sensitivity is increased and gluconeogenesis is decreased is dependent on AMPK activity. While independent, it has got slight effect on GLP-1 secretions, and it is also acting on a microbiota. There is also said as redox test. Metformin dysregulates the calcium homeostasis by disrupting the B12 intrinsic factor complex. This is evident by the fact that by taking calcium supplement, it reduces the metformin related B12 deficiency. Hence, it is said that metformin dysregulates the calcium homeostasis and it is decreasing the absorption of B12 from B12 intrinsic factor complex, and this effect can be reduced by giving calcium supplements. There are good number of advantages of metformin we have already mentioned before. It does not have any effect as far as insulin secretion is concerned, so it is called insulin sparing drug. There is no direct effect on insulin secretion, hence there is less chance of hypoglycemia, and because it decreases the appetite and decreases the intake of food, it is weight neutral, hence there is no weight gain. It is a first line of treatment for type 2 diabetes mellitus. It can be used as a monotherapy in early stage. Also, it can be utilized in pre-diabetic group, and it can be combined with sulfonylurea, we call pioglitazones, even with insulin, and it can be combined also with SGLT2 inhibitors. It can be combined with even DPP4 inhibitors. So it can be used with any particular insulin or oral hypoglycemic agents. There are good number of side effects because of which you might have to reduce the dose or sometimes you might have to stop. The commonest side effects are nausea, vomiting, cramping pain, bloating sensation, gaseous distension, diarrhea, very occasionally constipation. Rare side effects include lactic acidosis. B12 deficiency can end up with megaloblastic anemia. Hypoglycemia is again a rare complications. B12 deficiency on long-term use is quite common. We already mentioned GI tract side effects like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal discomfort. That is the most common, almost common in 10 to 25% of the people, and even some person can experience metallic taste. Another very common is deficiency of B12. Lactic acidosis, pancreatitis, sleep disturbances, peripheral neuropathy, secondary due to B12 deficiency, B9 deficiency, that is folic acid, is not very common. So along with B12, you can have a B9 deficiency, that is folic acid or folate deficiency. There is also CoQ10 deficiency, which gives rise to muscle cramps, etc. So person can complain of fatigue because of B12, B9 or CoQ10 deficiency, muscle cramps, neuropathy secondary due to B12 and B9, and some person might develop even a dementia, which is very rare. It is also called as brain fog. It is also seen that there is some chance of low testosterone level, which can end up with hair loss and baldness. Not a common complication, but rare complication you can come across. Lactic acidosis is more common with renal failure, so it should be avoided in any person who has got a GFR less than 30. It should be totally avoided. But between 50 to 30, or we call 45 to 30, you can cut down the dose, because in presence of CKD, it gives rise to lactic acid acidosis, quite common. So if person has developed an acute drop of GFR because of AKI, or if there is a GFR less than 45, or you are given a higher dose, say you are giving 2500 milligram of metformin, there is a chance of metformin accumulation and it will end up with what we call as a lactic acid acidosis. So in all these conditions, you should think it over and try to reduce the dose, or if GFR is less than 30, stop metformin. We know that metformin alone can reduce as a monotherapy up to 1.5 HbA1c. It is effective on fasting as well as postprandial both, and that is the advantage. So if we go through all now what we have uttered, it is wonderful drug for type 2 diabetes mellitus unless contraindicated. It is also the drug of choice for GDM, or we call gestational diabetes mellitus. It is also a drug which is very commonly utilized in MODI, that is maturity onset of type of diabetes in young. It is not a drug of choice in type 1 diabetes mellitus. There are some non-diabetic indications like PCOS, it is a drug of choice. It is also utilized in a pre-diabetic mellitus. It is also utilized in NAFLD, that is non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NASH, non-alcoholic steatotic hepatitis. Even they try to utilize in obesity for reduction in weight. Ideally, you should always keep it in mind for weight loss. It is also utilized in cardiometabolic syndrome. There are some people who have tried in hypothyroidism, particularly in a peripheral resistance. It is called tissue resistance in hypothyroidism, where you require a very high dose of levothyroxine. In that it is tried and it is seen that it is effective. It is also utilized as anti-aging process. It has been tried in Alzheimer's disease. Ideally, it should not be utilized for lowering LDL or TG. And it is seen that a person who is consuming metformin has got a lesser chance of colonic cancer. Now, when we come to contraindication, we have already mentioned that in a person with a CKD, or even a person who has got an acute AKI, acute kidney injury, it is contraindicated, and in a CKD, particularly stage 4 and 5, it is absolute contraindication. In end stage liver disease, it is contraindicated. In person with congestive heart failure, acute myocardial infarction, or any person who has got a shock stage, it is contraindicated because it will end up with lactic acid acidosis. If a person who is undergoing a major surgery or major illness, or we call acute illness like septic shock, etc., it is contraindicated again because of lactic acid acidosis. Any person who is hypoglycemic, it is but natural not to be utilized. If a person is undergoing a contrast study like angiography, or wherever the contrast media is to be utilized, it should be stopped at least 24 to 48 hours before utilizing a contrast study. And it is in a liver, particularly in a cirrhosis, we say red flag or no to, or we call contraindication or stop metformins. We already mentioned good number of contraindications. Some of the most common, you should keep it in your mind, is end stage renal disease, where GFR is going below 30 and person is in stage 4 or stage 5. Liver failure, congestive heart failure, shock or acute myocardial infarction, lactic acidosis, honk or severe hypoglycemia. Prior to contrast study, you must pay attention, and even in a septicemic shock. Even a chronic alcoholic who is consuming a good quantity of alcohol every day, in that also metformin should be avoided, because metformin has got little antabuse effects and it can precipitate lactic acid acidosis when person is a chronic alcoholic. So apart from those contraindication, it is, we have already mentioned some of the good uses: type 2 diabetes mellitus, polycystic ovarian syndrome, NASH, HIV related metabolic abnormalities, cardioprotective. It has been seen that it is cardio or protective for colonic cancer. In near future, we might see one of the major indication in colonic cancer. So there are beneficial effects and there are some pleiotropic effects which gives a beneficial effects because of decreasing hyperglycemia, decreases hyperinsulinemia, good effect on lipids, it increases GLP level, it decreases the inflammatory markers, it decreases the oxidative stress, and it has got also a good effect on microflora. Because of all this effect, we have already mentioned type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetic, cardiovascular protection, decreasing BMI, also in person with a hypertension, neuroprotection, nephroprotection, malignancy, aging process, PCOS, and now it was also utilized in COVID-19. But you have to think it over. So metformin is neutral as far as hypoglycemia is concerned. Also, as far as weight is concerned, there is no weight gain. By and large, good number of times you might have a slight weight loss. You have to take precaution in CKD, particularly stage 4 and 5. It has got moderate GI side effects like nausea, vomiting, pain, diarrhea, etc. In presence of congestive heart failure, it should be avoided to decrease the chance of lactic acid acidosis. It has got a good advantage in a person with atherosclerotic cardiovascular disorders because it has got a good effect as far as the lipid is concerned and diabetic control is concerned. As far as the bone is concerned, it is neutral. There is no osteoporosis, no chance of fracture. Hence, metformin is a good drug. Do keep it in mind. This is again same thing given comparison. So I've tried to cover up almost majority of the part. Advantages, disadvantages, yes, no, indication, contraindications of metformin, advantages, disadvantages of metformin. I hope this will be helpful to you. If you find this lecture is useful to you, please press button like and subscribe, and you can share with your friends. I thank you all for taking out time. I know that your time is valuable and I appreciate you for spending some of the time with me. I hope this will be helpful to you in your everyday practice, in internship, and when you start your practice. In subsequent lecture, we'll be covering up other in short sulfonylurea, SGLT2, game changers, etc. All different oral hypoglycemic agents. So see you in next lecture.